Welcome to R&R Living Life. Rick and I picked this episode up as we leave Timber Creek, an isolated small town on the banks of the Victoria River, the only significant settlement between the West Australian border and the town of Katherine. From Timber Creek we make our way towards Victoria River Roadhouse. We were now travelling through country that was influenced by the Victoria River that flows 560 kilometres from its source south of Judbarra Gregory National Park across a region of hills and basins to the Joseph Bonaparte Gulf in the Timor Sea. The river drains a basin of just over 70,000 square kilometres through several large cattle stations, including the Victoria River Downs Run. Victoria River Downs, once known as the Big Run, is owned by Heytesbury Pastoral. Originally established in 1883, it was once the world's largest pastoral lease, with an area of 41,000 square kilometres, but following much of the land being resumed, it was less than half its former size by 2004, while today the lease stretches across 8,900 square kilometres and runs just shy of 100,000 head of cattle, currently run as 4 separate stations: Victoria River, Manbulloo, Pigeonhole and Mount Sandford. The property is composed of several land types, including ridges and plateaus on sandstone or dolomite, gently undulating plains overlaid with loamy soils, limestone outcrops and alluvial floodplains with cracking clays. Vegetations include wire grass, white grass and black speargrass on the red earth country, with stands of ribbon, flinders, bluegrass and feathertop wiregrass on the clay country. On arriving at Victoria River Roadhouse, we made our way to the campgrounds and set up Gidget. That afternoon we went for a walk down to the river through tall grass that I was expecting Jurassic Park raptors, not really, but wild pigs to emerge from. Once we emerged from the river, we made our way back past the roadhouse, surrounded by immense escarpments and stunning scenery. Once back at Gidget, we were expecting a quiet night, but were treated to the shitbox car rally arrival and nighttime antics. I must admit they were on the quiet side. The shitbox rally is not a race, but rather a challenge to achieve the unthinkable: to drive cars worth just $1,500 across some of Australia's most formidable roads, all in the name of charity. We were now leaving behind what is called the Victoria River region, quintessential cattle country, with such legendary stockmen as Nat Buchanan, Reg Durack, Vince Lingari and others. Except for a portion of desert in the southeast corner, the sub-region is crisscrossed by cattle leases, and even those who do not work in the industry sport big hats and cowboy boots. The following day, our journey would take us just over 190 kilometres to Katherine. As our journey heads east, the terrain transitions from the immediate rugged escarpments of the Victoria River catchment into flatter, more open, but still undulating savanna plains. In some parts of the region, the landscape is punctuated by broad alluvial plains and river corridors intercepted by rocky plateaus, often referred to as tablelands or rocky terrain. Pastoral stations in the Northern Territory were initially administered and issued by the South Australian Government from the late 1800s onwards, up until 1911, with the first lease granted in Central Australia in 1872. The area between the Victoria River and Katherine in the Northern Territory is part of the larger Big Rivers region, often called Big River Country, covering a vast and diverse area that covers almost a quarter of the territory's landmass. It stretches from the Western Australian border in the west along the Gulf of Carpentaria to the Queensland border in the east, and over 500 kilometres to the south. The Big Rivers region is made up of small communities separated by long distances. The region is a critical hub not only for cattle stations but for mining, energy and diverse landscapes. Situated just below the tropical top end, with ecosystems of the region diverse, from dry open savanna woodlands to tropical ravine ecosystems. Terrains include plains and gentle slopes through to rugged sandstone escarpments, buttes, outcrops and flat-top mesas. The geostrategic location of the Big Rivers region positions it as crucial to Australia's northern defence capability, and the abundance of natural resources, vast landmass and unique landscape has led to world-class opportunities in agriculture, energy, resources and tourism. About 15 kilometres southeast of Katherine is the locality of Manbulloo, first settled by Europeans as a pastoral station. Manbulloo Station was established by the North Australian Meat Company to support the operations of Vestey's Meatworks in 1917, to be used as a link between its other stations to the west and the railway. Their plan was to rail the cattle to their newly constructed meatworks in Darwin, a plan doomed to fail. The station was naturally watered by the Katherine and King Rivers and numerous permanent waterholes. After operating as a cattle station for 74 years, Manbulloo's long pastoral history with Vestey's came to an end in 1993 when the station was sold. Further changes came when the station was split, creating three separate titles. One is run as a mango plantation, another as a cattle enterprise, and the third as a cattle and tourist enterprise. The area was also the site of the Manbulloo airfield, with works on the airfield initially undertaken by the 43rd Engineers Regiment, US Army in 1942, with the runway of 1,981 metres and 30 metres wide that hosted squadrons of the Royal Australian Air Force and United States Army Air Force. From Manbulloo Airfield, the squadron attacked Japanese airfields, ground installations, shipping and industries in the Netherlands East Indies, today's Indonesia, and the Bismarck Archipelago, a group of islands located just off the northeastern coast of New Guinea. During the war, a field abattoir and fresh food processing camp was also established by the Australian Army at Manbulloo. Today, Manbulloo is a sparsely populated rural locality containing commercial mango plantations and a CSIRO research station. Much of the land is still occupied by Manbulloo Station at around 371,000 hectares, carrying about 20,000 head of cattle. The original riverside homestead now functions as a tourist accommodation with the surrounding caravan park on the banks of the Katherine River. It was a lovely spot to spend a couple of nights before continuing on this leg of our travels to Darwin. We wandered down to the Katherine River one afternoon, only to have Rick walk over a red-bellied blacksnake. After my heart had stopped pounding, I did get to enjoy the tranquility of the river. With its headwaters in Nitmiluk National Park, it then flows through the town of Katherine and on past our camp here at Manbulloo, before joining the Daly River. Freshwater crocodiles inhabit the entire river, while saltwater crocodiles are capable of travelling far upstream after the wet season. The following morning we stopped in Katherine to refuel, beginning as an outpost established with the Australian Overland Telegraph Line. The town is strategically located at the junction of the Darwin to Adelaide North-South Transcontinental Rail Route and the Stuart Highway, the Northern Territory's main arterial highway connecting the regional road network to major trade routes from Australia's east, south and west coasts. Situated on the banks of the Katherine River, the town has a history of flooding, and looking out at the rail bridge over the Katherine River as we left town, I was again reminded of the huge volume of water needed to flood the town, especially by the metre rule on the bridge. Then to think that the January 1998 flood caused by tropical cyclone Les sent flood waters to peak at 20.4 metres over the top of the rail bridge. We were entering the Victoria Daly region, covering an area of just over 153,000 square kilometres. The region is a vast area of largely undeveloped tropical bushland in the northwest corner of the Northern Territory, and includes coastal waters and islands west of the Victoria River mouth in the Joseph Bonaparte Gulf. The Katherine Daly River is the longest permanent river in the Northern Territory. This great river was, until recently, deemed as two separate rivers due to the European naming conventions of the time. Its journey begins just south of Jabiru, high in the Arnhem Land escarpment as a trickle, until it flows into the Timor Sea some 690 kilometres later, thus making it 130 kilometres longer than the Victoria River. Located 90 kilometres north of Katherine is the tiny historic town of Pine Creek, with many of the original buildings still standing and memorabilia relating to the old Ghan Railway and Overland Telegraph. Established in the late 1800s after a gold rush in the area, the town has a small informative museum and preserved railway station. Pine Creek is one of the oldest towns in the Northern Territory, and it is named for the pine trees that once grew on the creek in the centre of the town. Although it was originally and officially called Playford, the name was not in popular use and was officially changed to Pine Creek in September 1973. During World War II, the Australian Army set up the 65th Australian Camp Hospital near Pine Creek. The town's airfield, initially a civilian airfield, was extended between May and July 1942 by the US Army as an emergency landing ground and to serve the military units based in the town. Unlike many top-end towns, Pine Creek was not bombed by the Japanese during the war, although Japanese reconnaissance aircraft were reported to have overflown the town on at least one occasion. We were again seeing stands of pandanus, also known as screw palms, though the plant is neither a palm or a pine tree. Interspersed across the savanna woodlands, pandanus can be found along poorly drained areas like creeks and rivers, and the margins of floodplains in various soil types. There were over 40 temporary airstrips built during World War II, primarily along the Stuart Highway, serving as crucial defence points against Japanese attacks, though many were basic cleared strips used intensively and later abandoned. A little further up the road was McDonnell Airstrip, located about 12 kilometres northwest of Pine Creek, that began construction in May 1942 and was completed in early 1943. The 100 feet wide, 6,000 foot long runway with a 50-foot shoulder paved with 4 inches of gravel was built alongside the former Northern Road, west of the Stuart Highway, during World War II. The airfield was named after Wing Commander Joseph Roger Gray McDonnell. Like most days travelling, there is always something interesting to see, even something so trivial as the pink turkey bush with its impressive showy pink flowers clinging to the steep sides of a cutting. The highway had many twists and turns along this section as we made our way between cuttings and then past lagoons with their unique tropical savanna ecosystems and sometimes a white stork. The top-end landscape has been shaped by fire and water and is dominated by woodland and open forest, with small pockets of grassland and monsoon forests. Today we were again treated to fire reduction burning along the highway. Though the landscape is relatively flat, with river floodplains and grasslands with eucalypt trees, there are rocky areas and patches of rainforest. Since we began our travels, Rick and I have learnt so much about the Second World War and just how close the Japanese Imperial Forces came to Australia, something that we never learnt at school or that my parents talked about. Adelaide River, the Territory's World War II front line, is a scenic town rich in history and was the site of a major military headquarters during World War II, located at the crossing of the Stuart Highway over the Adelaide River. The town is upstream of the Adelaide and Mary River Floodplains Reserve, where the river flows northwards through seasonally inundated tropical lowlands into the Van Diemen Gulf. Adelaide River was first settled by workers who arrived in the area to construct the Overland Telegraph line in 1872. During construction, the discovery of gold at Pine Creek had a major impact on the settlement. The old railway bridge and station, now a museum, which was a major enterprise at the time, with completion in 1889. Around 1910, pastoral and agricultural activities were stimulated with the issuing of leases of Crown land, with local buffalo hunters establishing Mount Bundy Station near the town. The river that flows north of the settlement reaches the Timor Sea approximately 50 kilometres northeast of Darwin. During World War II, Adelaide River played a central role in the defence of Australia, with the town designated as a rest area for personnel serving in Darwin. Military activity around the area increased significantly following the first Japanese air raid on Darwin in February 1942. The immediate aftermath of those attacks led to a mass exodus of the city's civilian population towards the south. The Allied response was a significant increase of forces to rebuild and greatly expand defences in the region. Adelaide River became the logistics headquarters of the Australian and American Defence Forces following the bombing of Darwin, and marked the start of intense conflict in the Northern Territory, targeting the port and military assets. The town became a major base for Australian and American forces, hosting airfields, supply depots and hospitals. While there were numerous bombing raids on the surrounding outstation and facilities throughout 1942-43, Adelaide River itself was bombed only once, in the early hours of the 12th of November 1943. This was the last Japanese air raid on the Northern Territory. We passed the Livingston airstrip, approximately 52 kilometres south of Darwin, off the western side of the Stuart Highway. We stopped at Struss Airfield, dating from 1942 to 1945, one of the last surviving and most intact World War II pursuit fighter installations in Northern Australia. Struss played a pivotal role in the air war against Japan by providing a base for the use of P-40 Kitty Hawk and Spitfire fighter squadrons. Struss was used by large numbers of American and British aircraft during the war. Rick and I will leave you for this episode as we arrive in Darwin. I hope you have enjoyed this episode. Give us a thumbs up if you have. Join us next time as we explore Darwin, before making our way to Litchfield National Park for a few days. Cheers for now. Live life to the full. Rick and Rosemary. R&R, living life.